Alex Eala. She's hilarious. Yeah. It's amazing. I told her that. I was like, dude, I'm so excited for this doubles because I'm about to have like the most support I've ever had.
She's much more experienced than I am. I don't think it was an easy win for her, so it's very difficult.
Clay doesn't lie. And that May afternoon in Paris, court Philippe Chatrier felt something it had never felt before.
I love the Filipino fans too, and I feel a little bit adopted when I play doubles with her.
The roar hit first. Filipino flags. Filipino voices. An ocean away from Manila, and they were everywhere. Alex Eala, 20 years old, ranked 38 in the world. No one had her name circled on their draw sheet. But she had just walked off that court having done something nobody outside the Philippines genuinely believed was possible. She eliminated Iva Jovic, world number 17. The player Novak Djokovic himself called a future world number 1. The scoreline will live in Philippine sports history. But the real story, how it happened and why everyone in tennis should have seen it coming, starts 4 days earlier. 400 miles away. When the world wrote Alex Eala off. 72 hours before that match, the headlines weren't kind. Eala had just lost in Strasbourg, her final clay warm-up. Her last chance to arrive in Paris with momentum gone. She surrendered a first-set lead she should have closed out. One outlet called it the most disappointing result of her entire clay swing. This was only her second French Open main draw. Her first back in 2025, ended in a first-round exit. A match she desperately wanted to forget. And now, the draw handed her the one name no algorithm, no pundit, no model said she could beat. The tennis world had already decided. Jovic wins. Full stop. And honestly, the logic made sense. Jovic had just torn through the Australian Open. A quarter-final run that only ended when Aryna Sabalenka shut the door. She had Charleston. She had momentum. She had Djokovic in her corner, personally studying her game and telling the world she'd be number 1. Tennis analysts looked at Eala's side of the draw and said plainly, it was not kind to her. And then there was the surface. Red clay. Red clay at Roland Garros is different. Slower. Heavier. More punishing than any other surface on tour. Jovic herself admitted she barely knew how to navigate it just a couple of years ago. Yet she still arrived in Paris as the seed. The favorite. The chosen one. Eala arrived as the obstacle to be cleared. That framing was the match's first mistake. 2 days before the first ball was even struck, Filipino fans were already inside the grounds, not for a match, for a practice session. BCBN Sports documented it. Fans packed the seats, cameras out, voices rising on every clean winner Eala hit in warm-up. This was a Tuesday morning in Paris, and the Philippines had already claimed it. Tournament staff had seen this before. At the Australian Open, Tennis Channel ran a dedicated feature on how her supporters took over Court 6. In Abu Dhabi, an entire arena vibrated on match point. At Indian Wells, the BNP Paribas Open officially named her the face of the Philippines. By the time match day arrived, by the time Eala and Jovic walked onto Philippe Chatrier, the crowd wasn't just an audience. It was an extension of her game. Now put yourself in Jovic's position. Ranked 17. Djokovic personally calling you after matches with analysis. A Grand Slam quarterfinal just 4 months ago. And you're walking onto red clay. A surface you spent years just learning to slide on. Against a player who grew up training at the Rafa Nadal Academy. On this exact surface. In this exact culture of grinding clay tennis. The tennis world had spent 2 years building the Jovic narrative. All of it pointed toward her winning this match. None of it accounted for the ground beneath their feet. Jovic's WTA clay record entering Roland Garros 2026. 8 wins, 6 losses. Her hardcourt record. 28 wins, 15 losses. That gap isn't accidental. It's biographical. Her own words from earlier in the season said it all. She didn't know how to slide. Didn't know anything about it. Charleston gave her momentum, sure. But Charleston's green clay plays faster, harder. Closer to hardcourt tennis. Paris red clay. That's a different civilization entirely. Jovic's Roland Garros 2025 debut. Round 2. Beaten by Elena Rybakina 6-3, 6-3. Not a single set taken. The hype said she was ready. The red clay had a different answer waiting. Eala had been writing her own answer for weeks. In Rome just before Paris, she beat Magdalena Frech in straight sets. then dismantled Wang Xinyu 6-4, 6-3. A performance one analyst called a breakthrough clay win. Then she stepped up against world number 2 Aryna Sabalenka and lost 6-4, 6-4. But here's the thing about that loss, she wasn't outclassed. She was competitive against the second best player in the world. On clay, Monday to Sunday that week in Rome, Eala proved she belonged. Then came the detail nobody properly talked about. Eala and Jovic had played doubles together. Twice. Auckland, Indian Wells. Partners both times. You don't stand at the same net with someone without learning everything. How they breathe under pressure. How they build a point. Where their second serve lands. How they react when a rally stretches long. Eala hadn't just studied Jovic from across the net. She had stood beside her watching everything. None of the pre-match analysis factored that in. Not one outlet. And then there's the quote. Months before they were drawn against each other at Roland Garros, Jovic sat down with Tennis Channel at the Miami Open and talked about playing doubles alongside Eala. Not tactics. Not clay. Not rankings. She said, I told her, Alex, I know it's amazing. Dude, I'm so excited for this doubles because I love the Filipino fans too. I know they're there for her, but I feel a little bit adopted when I play doubles with her. Read that again. The player every media outlet picked to win. The player Djokovic personally studied tape for. The player with a Grand Slam quarterfinal already on her 2026 resume was telling the world she had never felt a fanbase like Eala's. She wanted to borrow it. On match day, those fans weren't available for borrowing. They belonged to one player. And the sound of Philippe Chatrier filled with voices that had crossed oceans. No ranking system has ever found a way to measure that. What happened at Roland Garros in May 2026 wasn't just a first-round result. It was a structural event in tennis history. The WTA Tour was built around certain nations. Flip through draw sheets from the last 50 years and it reads like a geography lesson. United States, Russia, Czech Republic, Spain, Germany, Australia. Southeast Asia had no Grand Slam tradition. No WTA 1000 host city. No heritage infrastructure. The sport was never designed with Manila in mind. But now, the WTA's organizers are being forced to acknowledge something they can't ignore anymore. The next generation of tennis fans, and the next generation of champions, is not arriving from the expected directions. And the draw ahead of Eala, Emma Navarro or Janishchin in round 2, Naomi Osaka as a potential round 3 opponent, Aryna Sabalenka looming in round 4. Every match ahead is a bigger story. The red clay of Roland Garros has seen champions crowned and legends broken. It just may be watching a new one being built. Each match ahead is another chapter in a saga the sport never scripted, but can no longer ignore. After Paris, the grass court season opens. Birmingham is next. Eala's name is already on the entry list. A surface that rewards exactly the flat, fast hitting she's shown all year. And the rankings? They'll reflect what Roland Garros 2026 produced. A deep run pushes her back toward or past her career high of number 29. Every point won on Philippe Chatrier is a point scored for a country that was told, implicitly and explicitly, for decades this level wasn't meant for you. But let's go back. 4 days before Paris. Strasbourg, May 18, 2026. Eala won the first set 6-3. She had Buzkova exactly where she wanted her. Then the second set tightened. Went to 5-7. And before she could reset, the third slipped away 3-6. ESPN ran the headline. Alex Eala crashes out early at Strasbourg Open. Her final warm-up before Roland Garros. Gone. And Tennis Abstract didn't soften it either. What she did next tells you everything. She didn't withdraw from Paris. She didn't change her preparation. She didn't disappear. 4 days later, May 22nd, she was on court 4 at Roland Garros, working through practice while Filipino fans packed every available seat around her. In her pre-tournament statement on the Roland Garros official website, she said, I'm finding my footing, and I know that I can do well. I'm a much better player physically and mentally than I was last year. We've really been working hard, my team and I. She didn't claim to have solved everything. She didn't promise a result. She said she was working. She said she was better. Then she walked onto the most famous clay court in the world and proved both things at once. The fans were on court 4 before the tournament even began. That's where this story starts. Jovic told the world she wanted to borrow that support. That's where the irony lives. And Eala walked onto Philippe Chatrier 4 days removed from a headline that called her exit a crash. That's where the character was confirmed. Alex Eala did not stumble into this result. She built it. Over every clay court she trained on in Spain, every match she ground through in Rome, every game she watched from the doubles court, standing right beside the very player she'd eventually have to dismantle. The tennis world handed her the hardest possible opening draw, and the clearest possible narrative of who was supposed to win. She walked onto that court and answered both. This is what a nation looks like when it finally has a player who belongs at every table tennis has set, and then refuses to just sit there politely. The Filipinos who flooded Paris didn't come to hope. They came because they already knew. Now the question belongs to the rest of the draw. Can Alex Eala go deeper at Roland Garros 2026 through Navarro, through Osaka, through Sabalenka, or does the mountain get too steep from here? Drop your prediction in the comments right now. How far does she go? Every match Eala plays from this point is a story we're covering in full. The doubles subplot with Jovic, the potential Osaka showdown, the rankings chase back toward number 29 and beyond. If you're not subscribed yet, you're already watching this saga one step behind everyone else. Hit subscribe. Stay in the front row, because this French Open is nowhere near finished writing itself.